Okay, well, the question that's often put to theists is that if God wants us to believe in him, if God wants us to have a relationship with him, that perhaps he should try and provide us with a little bit more evidence. Well, the reply that often comes back is that really God doesn't want to do that because it might compromise our ability to make a free will choice. That by providing evidence he will be forcing us into believing in him rather than allowing us to believe in him out of free will, as an act of faith. Okay, well, I'm sure this is something we've all come across several times. Somebody actually put this as part of a comment the other day, so let me read out their comment. They put that the core of the problem is that people want proof. If there were proof, there would be no choice. There would be no free will. So this is the point then, that if God provides us with proof, he takes away our choice, absolutely. If he provides us with evidence, he's going to start to mitigate, start to limit our ability to make a choice, to exercise our free will. So what I would like to do is to assume that this is true. Let's assume that this is actually God's thinking. Now, the reason I want to do that is because obviously we could learn a lot from God's example. We can apply God's example to the things that we deal with, important matters that we deal with, and see how that pans out. So I'd like you to think of the example of a jury. One thing we want with a jury, we expect from a jury, is that a jury should be able to make an unfettered choice. That they should be able to use their free will to decide whether somebody is innocent or guilty. Now, what we traditionally do is we traditionally provide evidence to the jury and allow the jury to base their decision on that evidence. But it seems this is what God is telling us, apparently, that the more evidence we provide to the jury, the more we take away the jury's ability to exercise free will, the more we take away the jury's ability to make a choice. So what I'm suggesting we should do then, from now on, is not provide juries with any evidence. Rather than going through that whole messy, long drawn out business of providing evidence for the defence and for the prosecution, all we should do is the judge should stand there and say, the man presented before you, who has been covered with a bag so that you can't see him, has been charged with murder. How do you find him innocent or guilty? Well, that seems to be the case from God's perspective. That's the best way that we should do it. We should stop juries seeing evidence, because to allow juries to see evidence could severely impact on their ability to make a free will choice. I wonder how you feel about that. Well, that's God's view. That's God's position, apparently, so we're told. Now I'm going to give you my position on this. You see, rather than this idea that evidence is the enemy of choice, I actually think it's the foodstuff of choice, at least of informed choice. It's not even possible to make an informed choice, an informed decision, unless you have some evidence to go on. And the stronger that evidence, the better your decision is going to be. But this doesn't mean that we're forced down a particular line. There are some very celebrated people who are well aware of all the evidence for the modern evolutionary synthesis, something which is particularly well evidenced, and yet they still deny it. They still seem to be able to exercise free will and make a choice, even though it runs contrary, seemingly, to all the evidence. You know, I have to ask at this point, what exactly is a free will decision if it's not the action of your prejudices, your preferences and your instincts on evidence and information? Adding evidence and information into that system isn't removing free will, it's an integral component of the ability to make a free will decision. You know, I've had this channel now for a couple of years, and I've heard this argument brought to me or brought to others on a number of occasions. But what I've never heard in all that time is anybody of a faith position ever claim that personally, for them, that their faith is baseless, that it's without foundation. They always wheel out something which they personally regard as evidence. And yet they don't seem to see the contradiction here. They don't seem to think that that is impeding their ability to exercise choice, their ability to exercise a free will decision. So what's the real enemy of choice then? What's the real enemy of free will? Well, if we go back to that jury example, we actually, in real life, provide juries with as much evidence as we can. We feel that will allow them to arrive at a better decision. But the one thing we don't want is for the jury to be coerced, for the jury to be blackmailed, for the jury to be intimidated. If somebody threatens a juror and says, the minute you step out that courthouse, if you haven't found that guy not guilty, I'm going to break your legs. We always regard that as removing the jury's ability to make an unfettered choice. We don't like that. That is the one thing we try and remove out the equation. So I ask you, how am I able to make a free will choice whether to believe in God when I'm told that if I make the wrong choice, I'm going to burn in hell for all of eternity? How can that not be removing my free will to arrive at this decision? Well, thank you for watching this video. Take care.